Then by the end of the episode, Naomi was getting flowers delivered to her at Orphe Jeans because she wasn't in the office. That's because her actual office is Orphe Jeans. That is where Naomi tends to do all of her work. Hello, hello, fellow Beyond the Gates fans, here to talk about today's Friday episode. And well, some people could call today a typical filler Friday episode from this show. I will say that I do think that we had movement. I mean, there was finally some movement in Jacob's undercover story by the end, and we get to see one person involved in the plasma ring. So we might as well start in that story's orbit. Although I guess I'll start with Martin coming home early from being out campaigning to keep his Congress job, coming home to Samantha, who is home alone. No Tyrell, no Smitty home to welcome him home. We have not seen a lot of Martin as of late. I feel like they are slowly going to enter us into his government story. I think he will probably be more relevant again in like May or June, when I think that storyline is supposed to pick up, or so I have heard anyway. Now, Smitty was at Orphe Jeans with June, a comment favorite in my comments. People love June. June was on today, and she ended up sending Smitty over to a lonely Naomi who was sitting there looking pretty damn sad. Smitty knows that Naomi is worried about Jacob, but he can't say that he's also involved with that undercover work. So he let Naomi know that, well, he was basically there to comfort Naomi, but said that he thought Naomi was probably worried and upset about Anita and her cancer. So they talked a bit about Samantha and the cotillion, which June overheard and wanted to say she doesn't know much about the cotillion, but she's happy that Samantha seems happy to be about that life right now. Later, when Smitty left, June was worried for Naomi that she is not eating. She said that she hasn't seen Jacob in with Naomi lately and hopes everything is fine there. They talked about Jacob possibly being at some sort of like training, and then by the end of the episode, Naomi was getting flowers delivered to her at Orphe Jeans because she wasn't in the office. That's because her actual office is Orphe Jeans. That is where Naomi tends to do all of her work. I don't think they have an office for her on this show. Jacob, meanwhile, was in his undercover alley with the guy whose name I don't remember. I want to say like Ren or something to that effect. Jacob has been doing the pickups, and the guy wanted to know if Jacob is ready for more responsibility, with which Jacob said he certainly is game for. Jacob got a new, very big assignment. He is to do a pickup at Garland Memorials. So Jacob learned today that the big hospital is involved with this whole plasma ring ordeal. And so Jacob kind of panicked and called Smitty to talk about that because Jacob knows people that work at Garland Memorial and they might know him, and it very well could blow his undercover work. I think this information worried both Jacob and Smitty today because Smitty was kind of a nervous wreck as the episode went on as well. They talked about how Garland is one of the top hospitals, but since it's involved with this plasma ring is clearly a big deal. So Jacob had to go to the hospital in his even more undercover gear with a new hat and some new shades to stand in an elevator and wait for the plasma to be delivered to him. Meanwhile, Smitty went home, surprised that Martin was home already, and they got to talk about that. But the whole time, Samantha and Martin could tell that Smitty was distracted by something. He said he was just waiting for an informant, but as we know, nobody knows what Jacob is doing. So at the end of the episode, we see a woman enter the elevator with Jacob. Jacob doesn't know if that's the person dropping things off. It was not. It was probably just a patient or something. And then someone in a white coat walks in with a bag and drops it next to Jacob. And then when that person is leaving, we see that it is indeed Grayson who was doing this drop off to Jacob. And I think they both noticed each other. So yeah, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I believe there was a point where Jacob and Naomi were out with Ashley and Grayson, or they saw Grayson at the bar with Ashley or something, which I remember. So Grayson might recognize Jacob too, and in the preview that does seem to be the case. So I'm happy that at least this storyline has picked up and we have some movement, and we do now know for sure that Grayson is involved with the plasma ring in some way. At this point, I would say he's likely not the Impaler though, but just trying to get extra money working for the Impaler would be my guess. I'm starting to think that the actual Impaler will be a cop-out from the show, and that it will indeed be the chief of staff at the hospital, because she did happen to be in today's episode. And in most soap operas, when there is a story going on and it involves a mystery, if a character happens to be on that day, there's a good possibility of that happening, but maybe the show will still surprise us. Derek and Ashley shared scenes at the hospital today, which is never a good sign. But Derek was worried that Ashley had been working too hard and not taking care of herself. And they are, I guess, trying to remain friendly. Derek is saying he wants Ashley to be happy, and if Grayson is good for her, then he has nothing to say about it anymore. Derek was there to meet with the chief of staff about partnering up about the free clinic crap. Derek did end up meeting with the chief of staff, whose name is Dr. Whitmore, although I always forget her first name. At first, Dr. Whitmore didn't really want to listen to Derek, saying the hospital gets all these requests all the time, so Derek needed to contact the community affairs part of the hospital. But Derek was able to talk her into giving him 5 minutes for his pitch. He pitched the new Phoenix Street Clinic, and she ended up liking the project. And I guess she had heard about it before because Ted and Carlton's coworkers are volunteering. So she said she would love for Garland to work with the Phoenix Street Free Clinic. So Derek was successful today. And Ashley liked seeing Derek succeed in something, and Derek is happy to find a purpose again. They ended up hugging, even though they're trying to remain friends, and hopefully do, because their scenes are never going to not be boring together. But, Derek has needed a win lately on this show, and I guess today was his win, even if I do feel as though this free clinic storyline is not good television. But with Grayson now involved with the plasma ring for sure, we will see if that does leave Derek in Ashley's orbit and he has to save her at some point. I can see that happening. The only other thing on today was Anita being extremely weak and tired. She really did come across as run down today from all of her chemotherapy. And she had a surprise visitor. She didn't want a visitor, and she was worried that the visitor was Leslie. And thank God it wasn't. It was Tracy to visit Anita today. And as much as I don't really want to continue to watch this cancer storyline, because it's not a storyline I was excited about when it first became a thing anyway, Tamara Tooney continues to do a really great job. I thought today was probably her best work in the cancer storyline to date, when Anita completely had a breakdown, talking about how her body and her temple is breaking down and betraying her, and how Vernon has been her rock, but she's a mess. I thought it was very realistic scenes today and some good acting by Tamara Tooney. And that about summed up our Friday episode. So the big part of today is that Jacob's undercover work finally had some movement. We learn for sure that Grayson is involved, but I feel like the way they set it up today, that he's not the Impaler and is just working for the Impaler. And it would make sense with the scenes the other day that the Chief of Staff is the Impaler and that's who he's working for. It's kind of a letdown if she is the Impaler because she's a new character that just started. And I mean, so is Grayson. But I think it could have had a bigger impact if it was a bigger character or a character we'd known for a while like Carlton. It's still a possibility, but I kind of don't see that going that way now that we know Grayson is involved. It probably is the Chief of Staff, but we'll see. I'm just glad that story had some movement. And with this show, I do fear that now that we know Grayson is involved, it's going to take another 6 to 8 weeks to develop into, more movement on the story. But we do see in the preview that Jacob is going to be calling Grayson. But I'll talk about the preview on Sunday. We also have Vanessa's daughter finally cast and looking like she's going to raise some hell on Vanessa. So maybe that can make me want to watch a Vanessa scene. Anyway, another subpar week of the show overall. But, as usual, I hope for the best next week.